next to it,
Yep,
but
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I would assume they
Go
own the
there.
parking lot. They don't lease
Try
it
to
to
once a
somebody.
month, for sure, once
where I went.
every
A
other.
special meeting to order.
Yeah.
Your mallet's behind you, thing.
Yeah, gavel's right there, Dan.
Well, I'll get on you if you. We have a quorum present, so we'll waive roll call. Do we didn't need to take any action on the special meeting notice, is that correct, Chris?
You do, you just need to receive an order filed, a special meeting notice.
There we go. So
Motion.
I'll second.
we have first and second. Any additional discussion on the special meeting notice? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Item 3, and the purpose of our meeting is to engage in an open discussion about local childcare issues. At this time, I just want to say thank you all that came tonight to brave the elements. It's not a 20 below night by any stretch, but I think it deserves a special recognition for people who decided to come out and share your thoughts and ideas with us this evening. So at this time, what I'll do is I'm going to turn the meeting over to Chris, our city manager, and he'll moderate. And hopefully, we want to get some dialogue going. And this is just going to be a meeting where we hopefully get some really good input tonight, and then kind of develop a course of action going forward and see what resources that we could make available through the Economic Development Authority. So take it away, Chris.
All right, no. Thank you, Commission President and Commissioners, and thank you for the participants coming tonight. Like President Brahm had stated, this is really going to be an open dialogue. We really want to hear from the providers, what are some of the issues that you're facing? Because we can sit up here and come up with programs, but if they're not really addressing the needs and the concerns that you have as providers, then the programs aren't going to work. And so before we kind of open the floor up to discussions, what really are the issues that you're facing and how the EDA could potentially help alleviate some of those issues, I just want to touch base on some of the programs that we have available that you might not be aware about. And so the first one is more if you're opening up a new, whether it's a center or an in-home daycare, we do have our $10,000 grant that is available. And you can use that for all your startup costs. It's reimbursement, so you don't have to pay it back at any point in time. So if you're starting a daycare or opening a new center, it's just an easy way to transition to start. And then the EDA does have money available that we can loan, very low interest loan, to daycares looking to expand, remodel, and kind of retrofit. I know there are a lot of regulations are out there that you have to do, a lot of different things to your home to make sure it's compliant. So there is funding available to you at a very low interest loan, 10-year term. And so you can either talk to myself or to Heather Bragel, and we can get you the information you need. So with that, I'll open it up to anyone who'd like to come up and just talk about issues, whether it's training, if you're in a home daycare and you need help expanding, kind of what are the issues that you're facing, or maybe it's just the regulations are too stringent. I mean, it's really an open dialogue, and it's here for the EDA to hear really what is going on, so we can potentially come up with programs to help with some of those.
And Chris, maybe just before we start, a little bit about who we are. We're not the city of New Ulm, even though a lot of us work for the city and stuff, but we're a separate entity. And our job and our task is to improve economic development in the city of New Ulm. And you would think, well, what does daycare have to do with that? Well, of course, we all know, that. We have to have a place for our workers to drop their kids off before they can go to work. We did spend quite a bit of time I've been on this board now about 12 years, and we spent a lot of time on building houses, because that was important too. We had to have homes for workers. And so we did, I think, a pretty good job of that. Overall, we've increased the amount of houses for people in our community. We're not there yet, but we're better. And so now we hear from a lot of people from the communities, that's great, you got homes, but we don't have any daycare. We can't go to work. We got to stay at home and take care of our kids. And some of us personally have experienced that with our grandchildren or children. So as the Economic Development Group last month said, we need to tackle this issue. we need to talk about it. We need your help in getting us to that point. And some of you filled out a survey, and thank you very much. That kind of helped us get this meeting rolling for tonight. So thank you for doing that. But we want to see what we can do, and we're really serious about this. We're not just talking tonight. We want to hear from you. We want to know how to solve this or help you make it easier to run your businesses or start a business. We don't even know who's all here, but so that's kind of why we said, let's have a listening session. Let's listen. Let's hear from you and get your opinions. And so maybe if we just kind of go around the room and people can, do they have to come up and be recorded?
I would, yeah.
I'd like to hear from.
Why do we have to be recorded?
Why do they have to be recorded?
Because
Because it's a public meeting?
This is a
Public
public
meeting.
meeting.
Because it's a public meeting,
We're a public body, yeah.
yeah. And our microphones don't work in the middle.
And there may be people at home watching this, and if you don't
Can't
come
be
up to
here
the
tonight?
microphone, they can't hear you.
Oh, so we're on TV also.
We're being filmed by New Cat, and it's on the public channel.
But it's informal. It's advertised as an informal meeting. So.
I was afraid that maybe was scaring people away or whatever.
My name is Kathy Grausen, and I've been doing daycare for about 45 years in Wall.
Wow. Lots of babies.
This little guy over here is one of my, believe it or not, a family of 6 kids.
Yeah.
And Mary Becker was their mother, and she was working at Noam Drug, and she said, you know, I really can't afford daycare. I mean, my paychecks go to daycare, and I'm not very expensive, and I probably am the same price I was then. Not really, but close to it. And we had such a good relationship, and my daycare actually didn't start as a daycare. Back in the 70s when I got married, and I started working at 3M, and then I had 4 kids, and I quit after the second one. And my husband's grandma moved in with us, and she lived there till she was 101. And I was doing daycare for a couple people from 3M and Kraft. Their shifts overlapped. It was just an hour, and I wasn't licensed. I wasn't licensed for many years because I didn't do it full time. And then Grandma turned 100, and there's a picture of Jared Hirsch on the front page of the paper with Grandma turning 100. And boy, did they come after me. I had like 6 kids, and I was in a license, and my life changed. It changed immediately because I didn't have a license, but I wasn't full-time. I was like Mary's kids were part-time. So anyway, I went through all that, and I became licensed, and I've been licensed now for probably 40 years, 42 years, something like that. And then my husband died in February of 2020, and then I quit for about October, and then COVID happened, and I didn't think I was going to ever start again, but there was actually nothing to do at home to volunteer, whatever. So I was getting all these phone calls from my good parents, and I said, okay, I'll start slowly, and I did. So I made it work. My husband worked at General Trading. He wasn't paid a lot. I never charged a lot, but we made it work. But I could have used that $10,000 way back then, in 1990, when my husband built the backyard. We call it Alley Fair. Not Valley Fair, we call it Alley Fair because he did such a wonderful job building swing sets and everything, and I still have them to this day. So anyway, way back then, some of the licensors were wonderful. Some of them were against us. They were against all of us. They nitpicked us apart. Actually, I just hated some of them. Just absolutely didn't like them at all. Some of them I just love. Some of them worked with you. They told you what you did wrong, and they helped you correct it. The other ones said, nope, we'll send you to the state. You're not going to be licensed anymore because you didn't have those things covered, like those little things. And I'm talking about 1 or 2 of them, and they'd write you up for that. They wrote you up for every little thing. And it was really very aggravating. Just terrible. I mean, just 2 licensors came to my house on Good Friday and said my water temperature is 124, it should have been 120. 2 licensors. And I was off. I was off on Good Friday. And they came, And my husband was sick in the backyard. And they says, "Where's Kathy?" And she says, "She's off today." "Well, the front door is locked." I was cleaning upstairs. He says, "She's cleaning, she's upstairs." "Well, the front door is locked." "Well, so?" "Well, we came to check her water." He said, "What the hell do you want to check her water for? She's not working." "Well, she was too high." 124, it was supposed to be 120 or whatever it was. Well, they left. After that, I says, "I'm never letting him in my house again." So I locked the front door. So that's part of the reason that I have issues with licensors, and I would tell new people starting out, you might get along with them, you might do everything right, and you still will get written up for something. There's a lot of other little things, but in general, I absolutely love what I do. You know, if you find a job you love, and you really love it, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel. I got married. I have 4 kids of my own. I feel like I'm a mother, a teacher, a nurse, a social worker, everything to these little kids. I've been taking care of children of my children, children like their families' children, some of them, a lot of other ones that way. And I highly recommend it to anybody in the city. But you have to be flexible. You have to work with the licensor. You have to keep your house in great shape, so to speak, to please them, even though it's kind of crazy sometimes. I would be on a board or panel or whatever, if there are new people coming in and they want to know what's going on, you know, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. I would definitely help people that way, but I don't like all the licensing coming down from the state, all that rigmarole that they're telling us that we have to do. Drain has a lot more of those little things to have to say something about. But anyway, I'm still doing what I'm doing because I love what I'm doing.
So you
I'm
are
doing the
still
best that I can.
You are still licensed.
I hope so. That you asked that, because someone just asked that this week. Yes, I
I just
am
want to make
still.
sure. I'm pretty sure you said yes, but I wanted to make sure.
Yes,
Okay.
I did get, I never lost my license.
But frustrated with the regulations.
Yes, some of them.
Okay.
Some of them make sense, some of them are just
Yep.
way overboard. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Sure.
I'm Drain Spurgeon. Been licensed for a long time, too. Also foster parent. Have had over 150 foster children.
Wow.
So children are very important to me. I think Kathy's hit on a lot of important things. I understand that being licensed is a big responsibility. I understand that we need to be safety first for the children. I get that. I really do. But a lot of the regulations that our licensors have to follow come from DHS in St. Paul. I keep saying I would like them to come to my house and see what we do on a daily basis, and maybe they would ease some of these regulations that they are making the licensors make us do. That concerns me. My husband passed away 3 years ago. Kathy and I are kind of in the same boat with all this. My husband used to say, you know, they sit in the ivory towers up in St. Paul, and they make all these regulations, and then the licensors are supposed to comply, and we are on the bottom of the totem pole. We're supposed to comply too. And if we don't, then we get written up, whatever the licensor decides to do. I think another issue that I feel is important for you to know is the training process that we have to go through. It's called Develop. See this gray hair? I've been there, done that. It was before all of this Develop stuff started, where with Develop, you have to go online, you have to register, you have to pay online, you have to make sure that it's the right kind of training that is required. And there are so many different facets to that. It used to be, I would sign up, I'd call, I'd like to go to the training next Tuesday night. They put my name down, I'd go to the training, I would pay, I would sit at the training and absorb what they had to present, and I would get my certificate, done, all done, very simple. Not that simple now. I have a childcare mom right now who I do childcare for, and she said, I can see, because I was just relicensed a little bit ago, so I can share these things. I see all the things that you have to do, and I will not get licensed. It's reality. And I understand that you guys are really concerned about this. I am concerned about this too. We get calls a lot of times for infant care. And I feel bad for these moms and dads who are looking for care. But at the same time, money is not going to take care of it. It's all these regulations. And maybe you guys need to call DHS and say, what is the deal? Why are you constantly making more regulations instead of taking anything away? Okay? We have to be fingerprinted. We have to pay for those fingerprints. And then trying to get fingerprinted, Pauline knows all about that. Trying to get all these providers in so we can get fingerprinted. They were supposed to get 3 machines and they ended up with 1. Thank you, DHS. I don't have a warm, soft feeling in my heart for DHS. I'm sorry. Relicensing fee. So we have not had to pay a relicensing fee the last couple of years. But it used to be, there was no relicensing fee. I don't know where that all came from.
How much is it?
Yeah,
100?
200.
Teachers pay 40, 5 years, and we pay 200 every other year.
Paperwork. I feel children are most important. So many times, paperwork seems to be more important. Because there's daily paperwork, there's weekly paperwork, and there's monthly paperwork. I was going to try to get all this stuff together and show you my file of my paperwork that I have to do. It's real. Storm drills and fire drills and crib checks, and this all has to be documented. Every month that has to be documented. Licensors come, they want to see that. Then the drop-in relicensing. So when we're relicensed, we have files that we need to show our licensor. They need to go through the whole house. Lot of different things. So it used to be that they would announce, they'd call or they'd email or whatever and say, would Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock work? And yep, that'll work. See you then. And I'd have all my paperwork ready. I'd have my files for each child that I care for, have that all ready. Well, now it's unannounced. The relicensing visits are unannounced. And so we have these children that we're caring for. The licensor comes to the door. She wants to see all this stuff, and I'm magically supposed to take care of my 6 or 8 children, plus sit down and talk with my licensor, and plus have all this stuff ready. Come to my house. Each one of you can come to my house. I invite you. I really do. So those are some of the things that I wanted to share with you tonight. Childcare is evolving, is morphing into things that I don't think are really necessary. Okay? Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
I have a question.
Sure.
How many hours do you need of continuing education now compared to, what was it like 10 years ago? Was it like
I think it was 6. Now it's 16, and we pay for those
16 hours per year?
per year. And then there's specific, like 4 different specific areas that we have to make sure we cover. And then we have there's just so many different ones that we have to keep track of. Once in a while, we call the licensor, please help. What do our records show? I don't have record of that. Do I have that training taken care of? Please help me. They've been very congenial, very helpful with that. I appreciate that.
Do you think it makes you a better provider?
Having to do all those
16 hours
hours
a year, yeah. Yeah.
at night.
I can see, I mean, somebody new to it, where learning the ropes, learning some of the challenges, but after a certain period of time,
Well, and some of the trainings that we have to go to are redundant. We've seen them for the last 6, 8 years. We probably have them memorized. No, not really.
Keep some of them.
right? Well, that's what I was thinking.
And there's some good material out there, but when we're concentrating on making sure that we get the right ones covered for the right year, and then we have to fill in with the other ones,
So it's pretty much, it's determined the types of training you might need in a particular year, that they're going to tell you, you need specific type of training for this year or that year?
especially 4 of them, right? The SUID, and the, yeah, the. Yep.
Okay.
So with COVID, was any of the training able to be done online or Zoom meetings or anything like that, that you could be at
Yes.
home and
But
take it
there
online?
again, see this gray hair? I did not grow up with Zoom. Thankfully, I have a daughter who helps me a lot with that, and we were able to get our trainings in for this year. I think DHS was a little bit lenient with allowing some of the trainings not having to be done by relicensing time. So thank you, DHS. That's a plus for them. One.
One of the things we discussed at our previous meeting was to step in and offer assistance for the continuing education, so we could underwrite or pay for it for the local providers, and then hopefully find times that were convenient to provide it locally. Do you ever have to go out of town for training?
We used to,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes, I would go to Springfield, I'd go to St. Peter, Mankato.
Is
Yep.
Washington School still offering their spring half-day trainings for daycare? Does that sound familiar at all? No? You say yes? You're- So that's still happening?
Yes,
What do you remember?
with COVID, no.
I suppose, yeah, last year.
But I do recall going to a couple, and they do offer, like, I know Owatonna had like a whole day where you could go and basically get all of your trainings
Yep,
done.
yep.
So there are some options that aren't so spread out, but the tricky part with that is if you don't need that specific training has to be done in that month.
Right.
So if the training's offered in April, but you don't need it until November, do you switch your entire training schedule to then coincide with what training is offered? It gets kind of.
I always thought there should be like levels of training. Your first, because if you're a brand new daycare person, you probably need a lot of that training. The first 5 years maybe, and then less and then less. I mean, I'm a probation officer. They require me to have 40 hours of training every year. I've been in this business 36 years. I still learn a few things, but I don't need 40 hours of training to do my job every year. I just don't. But a brand new probation officer, you better believe I want them in that chair, and we probably all do, if they're gonna take care of our children. But I know that we've talked with Senator Doms and Paul Torkelson in the past. They know this is an issue, but it's
That's
so
not where
hard.
we need to go. We need to go to DHS.
Yeah, you're right.
All of you need to call DHS and say,
Yeah.
what is going on with all these regulations for childcare?
Yeah, but we need specifics. That's another reason why we
I
have this
gave you
going on
some.
tonight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
No,
why we're glad you're here.
I did that.
Yes, thank you very much for
Okay.
coming.
Were there any other questions? Okay, great.
This
Thank
is-
you.
Thank
for- Yeah.
Pop up here. Hi.
Great.
Good
I'm Megan
evening.
Zabel. I did daycare for 5 years. I quit in April. So I'm here kind
Perfect.
of not as a current provider, but did it for 5 years. I personally had a really great experience with my licensors. I understand that the paperwork is a lot, but like you said, you have 40 hours of training to do every year for your job. It's not, that's what it is. So my issues are, I close in April, and I still get 3 to 4 phone calls a week for infant and toddler spots. So we don't have enough. Our childcare license allows us, I was a C2, which means I could have, Pauline, help me out, 12 total, 3 under the age of 2.
Including the baby.
Including babies.
Okay.
So there's just more babies being born than there are daycare providers. Preschoolers you can have more of, so I know a lot of providers that only do preschool programs because you can have more of those children. But the real need in our community is the infant and toddler spots. I don't have an answer for how you to fix that, but that's where the concern is for me. The other issue that I run into a lot is parents thinking it's babysitting. They don't really understand what goes into it. They think it's a place to drop their kids off. They don't really understand the activities that we do, the teaching that we do to get them ready for preschool. The most important learning happens from 0 to 5. I have a master's degree in education. I was teaching out of my home to infants, toddlers, and preschoolers to get them prepared to go to preschool. And parents thought that it was just some place that their kids hung out, played with toys, took a nap. So that, I think just parent awareness of, and community awareness of how important daycare providers are. Because I would ask the question, you're kind of finding out, what would you do without us? Not to toot our own horns, but regardless of how much circle time you do, you still need a place to bring your kids. And you would probably enjoy bringing your kids to a place that is teaching, that is safe. And the other side of that is you're going to pay for what you get. I was on the more expensive end, but I backed it up with what I did in teaching and curriculum and all of the things. So I think that's one of the issues. We don't have insurance, so we're self-employed. And a lot of people will say, well, you got into that job. You knew that was par for the course. You don't have insurance. That's true, but if there was some way to help subsidize insurance costs for childcare providers so that we had more options, because my spouse did not have insurance, and the insurance through his work just covers him. So for me and my 3 kids, we're on our own. So that's one of the things that we found kind of tricky. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was just substitutes. So if my child has a doctor appointment, I need to run to the post office, I am open from 7:15 to 5:15. There's not a single business in town open before or after that I need to go to. So during the day, there's just not, and I don't know how many of you have that struggle too, but there's not, because substitutes have to go through training too. I can't just call my grandma and tell her, Grandma, can you come sit with the kids when they're napping? We have to have substitutes go through background checks. They have to have trainings that we have to pay for them to be able to substitute for us. So, and
Seeing heads nod, so this is a common issue?
And I do think some of the regulations for substitutes have relaxed a little bit. But again, it was everybody that came into my home when I had an infant of my own. Grandpa couldn't come over and hold the baby without suicide and abusive head trauma training, his own grandchild, because it was a licensed daycare facility. So, subs, insurance, those are kind of my issues. But I know that licensors are hit and miss with a lot of people. Pauline, you do a fantastic job. And I, for 5 years, had a really good experience. I firmly believe that our licensors are here to help us because, like you guys said, DHS is the problem. They're not in the trenches. So the licensors see a lot more of what we do.
I have 3 little kids of my own and decided that I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and just not have 10 hours of daycare every single day. So, yep.
Things that our group talked about at our last meeting was the insurance, the study that we sent out, or that some of you sent back remarks. There were multiple comments about insurance, and that's again something potentially that our group could help with, is creating a consortium and creating our own insurance that we could provide to daycare providers in our city or in the county, whatever we decide to do. So I'm glad you talked about that, because it's something that I think that maybe we can help with. We can, no promises yet tonight, just talking. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
Well, Megan, you said you had your own infant, right? So when you have your own infant in a household, that's one less infant you could even bring into the house as a
Correct.
provider, correct?
I always told
So-
parents I'm not a daycare provider, I'm a family planner. Because
Yeah.
if you wanted to have a baby in the next 3 years, I best be your first phone call.
Yeah. We
talked
had
about
that
that, too.
discussion last month, too. You call your daycare provider before you call your husband and say, hey, I'm pregnant, right?
100%,
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, so we understand the challenges, and I appreciate, even though you're no longer doing daycare, that you offered your insights as well. I
Yeah, so
think
you
that's,
absolutely didn't have to come tonight, so
Yeah,
thank you.
Oh
It's-
my gosh, I would not
Really
have missed
appreciate
it.
well, it's an important topic, and
It is.
I really hope when we're all said and done that we do walk away with some tangible things we can move forward with, and
And it's hard to know what we are going to hear a lot of our maybe complaints and things that we wish we could change, but how much of that you guys can help with, any little bit is going to be helpful.
Right, and had we started a year ago and we said, okay, we'll cover your insurance, we'll take care of that, would you have hung in there a little bit longer? And if we could get that for a few more daycare parents to get that few more years versus, I got to go back into the workforce.
Right, yeah,
So
I
that's
think so.
some things that we've been talking about, is just get them a little longer, keep them going. So,
Yeah.
well, and I know so far there's a recurring theme of DHS kind of being one of the major obstacles, and obviously we're thinking more on the local level, but that does not to say that what we could do is facilitate some greater dialogue too, through us and through other resources through the city. And I would think we wouldn't have to put out a call very loudly to get other communities to say, hey, we're in the same boat. So I think everything that we're saying tonight, everything we're talking about tonight is very important, that we maybe come back and say, okay, we're getting, this is critical, and what we need to do is make some changes. Now, I have a daughter that does daycare. I don't know if you know her or not, but one of the suggestions she has, and this is something I'd like to pose to everybody, would it be feasible to approach DHS with an in-home infant specialist, where a provider, rather than just being a preschool specialist, would focus just on having infants? And if so, what would be a feasible number if they chose to have that sort of license? What do you guys think about that?
There is.
There
that
is one that does
license.
that? Okay, I didn't know that, and she's not been in it very long, so.
Pauline, how many infants is it? 4? Only 4.
So you get 4 infants,
Yeah.
or you can get 12 kids, and basically it's a.
No.
No, I'm saying if you go with strictly a preschool, right?
Strictly preschool is 10.
10, okay. 10
Right.
versus 4, and your hourly rate is pretty much the same between the two?
Yeah.
So,
for the most
okay,
part.
let me think the math here for a second. 10 or 4? What should I do? Obviously, that's one of the challenges, right?
And there is a license that allows you to have a couple more infants, but you need 2 childcare providers. And I considered doing that with my sister. She's in early childhood education. And I was like, well, let's just do infant childcare. It's like 7 or 8. And it's not feasible for 2 people to have a livable income
no.
taking care of 8 children. So,
And maybe that's what she spoke to, is something greater than the 4 number, and if there'd be avenues that you could do.
Yeah, it's
in order
hard to know.
facilitate that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know those rules come directly from the state, right? That's nothing. That's,
and provider comfort too. A lot of people don't really want to be
No.
in charge of infants because one of you mentioned this, but like crib checks, if there's a wrinkle in your crib sheet, you're probably going to get a fix-it ticket or a fine, or, you have to keep those infants safe. And it just, for some people, is just too much. They just can't handle it. And I'm glad that providers know their limits so that they don't take on more than they can handle. But man, it sure puts a damper on the infant and toddler care when you don't have all the providers providing care to those younger ones. And a lot of times when you have a family that has a 3-year-old, you're going to give them priority if they're going to have a new infant versus a new family. So being a new family in town, forget about it. Like, there's just not room. So that's my
Thank
piece.
you.
One daycare was fined $600, $200 for the infant crib being collapsed, lights in the crib, and the child was in a swing because the infant had thrown up, and she was fined $600. Not that she had to pay it, but.
Well, good evening. My name is Jennifer Eckstein, and I have a different take compared to what others have been stating. I work directly with DHS for 10, 12 years now. I also still do work with Pauline, but just on in different areas than maybe others here. So my licensors are on a different level, and it's actually from the
center?
state. Yes.
Okay, good, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you. And I've actually had really good experiences with them. I had the same licensor for the last 10 years until she decided that she was going to move to a different area. And so now, through COVID and whatnot, we have a whole new rigmarole going on. It's been over the phone, via email, things like that, but she's been super flexible and great. We've had hour-long conversations. As far as trainings and what can we do to work through the COVID
You have
situation.
no rules with the county, that's what I understand,
No.
right? County does the home daycare, state does centers.
Yes. And they
So
are,
what's the definition of a center?
it depends on how many kids you have, how many children you have. And I actually started out with the two-person in-home through one of our properties or rental homes that we had, and we did it that way. So I was Rule 2 years ago, and now I'm been Rule 3 for the last, dozen years.
Which center are you with?
Little Rascals Learning Center.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And they're, I don't know how to explain this in a tactful way. Let's just say they do have their rules to follow. There's a lot of gray areas that aren't written out necessarily for the understanding of someone that wants to get into it, and even now, after 12 years. And the licensors through DHS will tell you that. They're just very honest. They will say, they come together as a panel like this, everybody goes through everything. Does everybody agree? No, let's table it for another 5 years. So it's all in the wording and how you perceive those rules to be. Yeah. And, having 115 kids, things get broken, it gets messy. I have kids that drag bugs and pine needles and all kinds of stuff into science, and I let them do it because that's what learning's about. So if they were to show up and I had pine cones crushed all over the floor, yes, I would get written up for that. So that's just part of what happens in the field. Do I think it's a little extreme? Yes. Are they understanding? Yes. So it's kind of hard to, but the crib sheet thing was my very first write-up. Yeah. So I do understand that. I actually have to use a crib sheet on mini cribs because we have 20 infants that is not even made for that crib. And we had to purchase many, many, many of them to find the right one so it didn't pluck too much. So yeah, and I look at numbers too. We live in New Ulm, so what I can charge, and Chris and I have kind of chatted, is a lot different than San Francisco. We're in New Ulm, Minnesota. People here aren't going to pay that. An infant for us right now is $145 a week. That includes food, diapers, wipes, 45 hours a week. And so I essentially make zero income off babies, and we have 20 of them.
Really?
So I house essentially for the day 20 infants to profit zero because I pay the staff and keep
How many
the.
staff?
It's a 1-to-4 ratio for infants. I have a total of 23 staff.
Okay.
So
How is keeping staff?
good.
You good with that?
Yeah. Some of them 10 years, 8 years, 6 years. Something else I found that helps when I have someone who shows interest in the childcare field, I want them to come in. So we've had high schoolers, we've had males and females. I want them to come in and experience it. A lot of places aren't open to doing that. For me, I feel like it is what it is. Nothing to hide here. You know, I want them to see, is this really what you want to do? Because it's a difficult task. And
Does
so.
your staff have to be have the background checks and the same, very similar to what they were talking about with in-home? Is that process the same, fingerprinting and
Yeah, that's
background?
correct.
Okay.
But
so-
I used to have to pay for 40 hours per staff member every year.
Okay.
So that would be another perk that I would throw in. I pay for their trainings. I also, when I see potential in somebody, I'll hunt around and I'll say, who do you know? Who do you have if we need another person? And I ask my inside core, and if they give me somebody that I feel is going to be great, I have a hour-long conversation about, you know, do you want to be in this profession and whatnot? And I will pay for their online schooling. So,
Approximately how much is that?
it depends. It can be anywhere from 500 to 2,000.
Wow.
So so then they can come in and work as an assistant in a classroom and help out. I have 3 people that have gone through it in the past few years. So,
So getting some tuition or some training reimbursement might be helpful for your overall agency.
yeah. And I think that's very helpful too to motivate, because you have these young people essentially that maybe don't know what they're doing with their life or may not have someone to direct them.
Right.
And they don't know, should I go to college? How do I get a loan? What do I do? Where do I start? You know? Or they went to Mankato State for a year and dropped out and then didn't do anything else because there wasn't direction or guidance, or maybe it was a financial thing. And so I try to help in that aspect. But something I will comment on that is frustrating, these lovely ladies have been in the field for a very long time. And if they came and worked for me, they would qualify as an aide.
I've heard that. I'm glad you brought that up. Remind me why that is again.
Well, not necessarily. Have either of you completed 12 college credits? So because they don't have 12 college credits, they would qualify as an aide. And that's very frustrating to me because I can get a 19-year-old, 20-year-old something who knows the world, went to South Central for 3 months, was a daycare aide in a house helping somebody or whatnot, and so has these hours, and she will qualify for more than these lovely ladies here.
Isn't that crazy?
And they have so much wisdom and knowledge behind what they've been doing all these years that I could probably learn a lot from them.
Exactly.
The aides can't be left in a room by themselves with children, can they? Unless
Well,
they're sleeping?
changing, sleeping, if you're doing a group activity and they're in the same vicinity type of thing. So, yeah. So essentially, they couldn't be alone with the children.
I've heard that too, yeah.
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 Jen, can a individual employee of yours make a living just unto themselves, or would they almost always require a spouse's income as well? I'm not asking you to say what you pay. I don't care about that. But does the profession pay well enough?
No.
Well, there's a lot of heads there.
I try to give different types of perks. So, I mean, it's not always great. It's all essentially, we have had men work for us. Right now, it's all women. And so essentially, we typically all get along. I mean, we very rarely have figured out over the years how to get rid of any obstacles so that we can work as a cohesive group. But I would have to say, you can tell if someone's stressed out about finances at home or if something happened. I mean, that's a big thing.
Are you able to offer health benefits for your staff at this time?
I am not.
Okay.
And that would be huge because I choose not to, because it would affect 90% of my staff from getting insurance. Because, like, they don't have insurance, the spouse doesn't have insurance, and so they're able to obtain insurance.
Okay, so,
So again, if we were to create something in that world, that's something that your center would have a large interest in.
It would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hear that same, because some people might have a spouse that's carrying insurance or working a different job, but would everybody probably have an interest in something like that? We don't know what it would look like yet, but, okay, thank you.
I also feel opening another center in town, that's been something that's been tossed around. I think that would be a great idea, but I also think that it needs to be done in a way where it's not, and I'm not saying random people, you guys are all a part of the community, but that it's not people who are not in the profession, who haven't ran, or run, should I say, a facility and dealt with all the little things that come up. I don't know how to express it, but I think it would be a great addition to the community as well. But it does take quite a few years to get a flow going.
so if,
Things I heard about if opening a center, one of the smarter things to do is to take a home daycare person and move them into the center. That if we as EDA were to open a facility.
well, they have to have the 12 credits, right?
Yeah, after they have 12 credits, of course, but.
If resources were made available to you to expand, would that be something you'd consider? And what impact might that have on the license that you currently have? Would it create more red tape at the state level to have a bigger center?
It would not create more red tape. To go back to your first question, that is a possibility. I have several different entities or businesses, should I say, that I do at this time.
Hey,
But I have, well, for example, she's been with me for many, many, many years. So she is in training to be me. I have another gal that's been with me for 11 years, going on 12. She does all the food program, all the scheduling, you know, everybody has their thing and we all know how to do it. So essentially, I have people that can disperse, and I could take on more staff as well. We just don't have room for them necessarily right now.
it's a physical limitation at this point for you with, as being part of it.
Yes, and I know my husband would die because he redid the whole thing, and he literally, I don't know, almost quit, had a midlife crisis, so.
But would you say, Jen, that you're trying to position yourself for more expansion? Is that kind of what you're starting to set up a little bit, or no?
Actually, the total opposite of that,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be opposed to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm at a point in my life, my kids are old. They are going to be out of the house soon. It makes me sad. I'm in a whole different ballpark. Ashley has 2 little kids under the age of 5. So she's still in that. I passionately still enjoy what I do. But it's almost like I'm not bored, but give me another project, you know, something else.
Do you see an expansion or a different facility number 2?
I don't know.
Okay, just, I didn't know if you had something in your head, but.
Well, I'm just looking at it for us.
Yeah.
The one big thing we have is a checkbook, you know, as an EDA. So if it means, if we can solve some of those needs by facilitating some things, that's, and by all means, I didn't try to put you on the spot or
No,
anything.
that's fine.
I don't want to get in trouble with your husband or, you know, anything
Oh,
like
no, it's fine.
But,
If he's
you
listening,
know.
I wear the pants.
Yeah, there you go. I know how that goes. Anyway, so that was the reasoning for my question.
Yeah.
It just, you know, when you're in a home setting, you're in a home, there's just so much you can do in terms of physical space and the requirements. But a center sounds like there's a little more flexibility with the potential for expansion if it's in the cards. So if we can be a facilitator in terms of having resources available for that, that might be something that we can in turn consider then going forward. I just want to be clear, it wasn't
Yeah,
by
no.
any means trying to put you on the spot.
You're
and say,
good, Dan.
what are you going to do next week? You
You're
know, or
fine.
whatever. Yeah. so-
Nobody knows what you're going to do next week. Life's a journey, you know?
I got something for Kathy, Jareen, and Megan. Would another center, would you see that as major competition, or is there so much that wouldn't even dent your competition? It wouldn't be that way for you?
I do want to address that, actually, Terry. There are people that I have talked to that will not send their children to a center because they want the home,
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
and vice versa.
Yep.
So there, you can open another center. That's not probably going to solve some of the issues with home daycare, because there are people that prefer one over the other, and that's pretty across.
Yeah, we
the
know we
board.
can't solve it by just either increasing home daycare or a center. We think it's going to have to be a combination but we have to be careful we don't overbuild, but I don't think that's going to be happening anytime too soon.
And if people don't have the home daycare option and they need daycare, they will take their kids to a center. And
Yeah.
you're gonna take them to what's available, but I know preference-wise, there are people that prefer one over the other for whatever reason.
So can we get you back into a center or home daycare?
We can talk.
Okay.
Other things that
Other
I
tips for us? Yeah.
Yeah, other things I do note too is being out in the community with kids. What somebody sees when they drive by, as opposed to what's really happening, turns into a huge rigmarole. Been through it, done that, but
How do you mean? Give an example of that.
so when I first started out, we were in a home that we owned and used a rental house and did childcare. It was not my plan. I was a nurse. Things happened. So, okay, well, now all these people want me to take their kids since my kids aren't there either. Here we go. So, a teacher from where my children were and I utilized a house on Broadway and started doing childcare. And then I thought, well, I need something else to do now. So, let's keep going. So, there was mall space. We all know about the mall. We would take the children and teach them where to stop, sidewalks, look for vehicles, cross to the park, utilize things in the community. We had one lady call, and she actually called the police because the kids were on this rope where they could hold the rope, and they would walk down Minnesota Street. And she said that we were tying up the children and things were happening, you know? Or, for example, people don't know in the community if a child has special needs or if they have an IEP, which is maybe some files that you had to do a sit down with the family and outside sources and create. And maybe that child does need a bear hug right now on the sidewalk. Maybe that child does need to be by themselves laying on the sidewalk and everyone's watching because they need a minute. Yeah, people don't know that. You know, so I think especially for in-home, that is a lot of why in-home providers get stressed out too, going out places, going in the community, because what's going to happen? Who's going to say something? You're by yourself. You have no one to back you up, you know? So I think just talking to some in-home providers that I know that is a big thing. Because let's be real, looks are everything. What you see is everything.
Now, I have a follow-up question for that. The survey also indicated that a lot of the home providers say that they actually struggle as well with the parents and that they're kind of worse than the kids sometimes. And so, because
head
there's a
nods.
few home providers here, can you just maybe share a little bit about the experience? Because we know that you love the children or you wouldn't be doing this for 40 years. And bless all of you for doing that because I have 2 children and it just, I couldn't do it. But, but do you have any, what would you guys say about the parents as well? And, I know you probably have some parents, but just, generally speaking, do you see that as a struggle and as a reason why some providers might not continue or want to get into the profession?
I think it used to be, for me, when I first started, I needed to learn what tools to use. And I really feel communication is the most important. And I have 3 different tools that I use. his knee, that parent will know about it. Sometimes we even text the fell down, his hurt his knee, we took care of it. So I feel communication is really important. Yes, parents have been. Just want to say something too, this is kind of done, and I was going to mention this, that there's a provider childcare Friday before Mother's Day. I think you as a good, that well known in the paper, whatever, and promote that for the child care providers, centers, and home-based, so that the parents know that. Flowers, sometimes they bring coffee, sometimes just a thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you. I'm going to be respectful of our time and your time as well. So we have about 3 people that have not spoke. Do they want to speak? Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure we respect your time and let you go home and relax and watch the Olympics.
Hi, I'm going to be brief. My name is Jeff Becker. I'm on the board of directors at Kids Excel Center. I've been the president there for 3 years. I've recently stepped down, but continue to be a board of director there. One of the things I want to echo is everything that's been said here is completely. I have all these ideas in my head about what I wanted to say, and everything that they're saying is what we deal with too. The licensing and the DHS things that our center deals with, it's when we have our monthly board meetings, it's always very nervous for our teachers, our assistants, our director when they have a visit coming. They're always very nervous. So I understand what that's going on, and we get nervous as a board that what if everything is kept very nice and everything is done very well up there, but we always get nervous. What if that one thing shuts us down? We're going to destroy a lot of. We have 80 kids. We're gonna hurt a lot of families just by that, and it could be something really stupid too that they shut us down for. One of the things that we've talked about too is I think that would be a very good idea is the insurance you mentioned. I like that idea. We've talked about it as a board. We struggle to pay our teachers and our aides well. That's one of our concerns. We try to find money for that. We can't do it. We just don't have enough. We're as opposed to, we're a nonprofit too. That's we have pretty much the same issues as the for-profit and the in-home daycares too. So one of the things that I want to speak as a parent now, one of the things that gets brought up in our meetings is the waiting list for infants. Our waiting list at Kids Excel is 9 months for infants. So you might not even know if you're having a child yet, and you have to book that spot. That as a parent, as a member of the community, as somebody that loves this town, I think that is a concern. We're gonna lose out on families. We're gonna lose out on business. Just by that alone. So and we're not alone in this. This is a lot of the other a lot of communities are dealing with. But that's something that when they say it's 9 months out for infants, that's concerning. So,
And that's why it's our big topic and why we're here tonight. Absolutely.
So that's all I got. We're as an organization, we're dealing with other things. I wish I could have brought a teacher along, but yeah, we're dealing with some other things right now that.
So would your facility ever consider expanding if it ever had that option?
Yes, we about I want to say 2 years ago, we don't have a kitchen where we can make meals, so we always have to cater that out. That costs a lot of money to cater.
Absolutely.
So one of the things we wanted to do is expand into a kitchen, which would save us a lot of money. We don't have, and that costs a lot of money.
Yep.
So, you mentioned loans, that, that would certainly help. Low-cost loans like that, but, it's one of the things that we would certainly look at.
Thank you.
I just have a question, if someone could answer, and Jeff, you may or may not be able to answer this, but can someone define what an infant is? Is it 12 months and under, 18 months and under? How do they define infant for licensing?
For a center, it's up to 16 months.
Okay.
In-home is 6 weeks to 12 months.
Or, yeah, I'm sorry, 6 weeks to 16 months for a center.
In-home is 6 weeks to 12 months.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any of the other folks want to chat quick?
All right, I'm Matt Parola. My wife and I have done daycare in our home for 12 years, and then last August we opened up Stay and Play Childcare up in the I can't think of the building, but right across from St. Paul's there. So we're the guy with the new kids on the block, and talking about what you said about if expansion or whatever, I don't think that's going to hurt anyone, because when in that 8 months we're already we've 64 kids and we're booked already.
On the waiting list, probably.
Yeah, and we have people calling for infants in like 2022 already, asking if we have space for infants. So there's that. And then I guess my one of my other things is some kind of subsidy that can lower the cost of daycare for the parents, but raise the cost of what we get paid. Because like none of us are getting rich doing this. And I mean, we're not really in it to get rich, but at the same time, we're scraping by a lot and putting in a lot of our own time and everything, and giving up a lot too to not really make that much, really. So.
But if we were to help with insurance, that would help. If we were, and these are big ifs, just talk, we would help with education, that would help save some dollars out of your expenses, I would assume, correct? Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. Anybody else?
We're going to try to keep it at an hour, so.
Well, and I kind of just want to touch on some of the stuff that was spoke on, that was brought up tonight, looking at, daycare as a whole, and again, having that perspective, being from California and seeing what daycare is here. And you brought up the point that people think you're babysitters, and you're not. And you are legitimate businesses and need to be treated like businesses. And Megan brought up the point that she has a curriculum. And again, and Jen brought up, she charges $145 a week for an infant. I was paying $125 a day in Southern California a day. And I had to provide the diapers, provide the food, because it was.
That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they were treated as a business. This is my business. This is how I'm going to provide for my family, and this is what it is, And when you do the math, you're getting $5 an hour a child. If I was to hire Heather, if I wanted your kid to come over and watch Jackson, I would probably give them $40 and a pizza for 2 hours of work.
I crunched the numbers on this last night. I made $2.80 an hour per preschool student that I have when I did bake.
And that's not sustainable. And part of it is, what are you willing to pay to have your child be raised, have that education to get to that next level? I mean, the center I took my child to was learning Chinese and Spanish, so different, but again, it's kind of that where you are a business. Every single one of you in here is a business owner. You're not a babysitter that's just doing this for fun, for money to buy something. Yeah.
Years ago, when we were quite young, I wasn't making any money, of course, and I went to Andy Beeble, who everybody, the accountant here, and I said, what am I doing wrong? And he said, Kathy, said you charge $1 an hour, says 33 cents is yours, 33 cents is for your supplies, and 33 cents goes to the government. Just look at it that way.
No.
So I went up to $1.25.
Do you also think as well, because I mean, speaking, growing or having a child out on the East Coast, I mean, I was paying $200 a week 15 years ago, but for this similar things, for the comfort, for the safety, for the education, the curriculum, do you feel like we could maybe educate parents as well to see what more the market would bear? Because I know that you go to the cities, you go to St. Peter, you go to Mankato. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know that parents complain about, I mean,
I do think that's a good, kind of, there are some different things happening on a level of scale, how much age help with childcare, so that's all in the works.
so is it increasing or decreasing?
It is increasing.
So they're going to get more financial support.
I
Okay.
feel when that happens, then in-home centers raise their prices, hence a little extra pay to the staff, money, and et cetera. I don't feel that this area or this particularly region where and charge $200 plus per kid week. It's just not a thing.
I had a follow-up question to that, and I kind of lost it. No, that's okay.
So once the threshold raises, it's higher.
Then
Are you referring to like the daycare assistance that families are able to, under certain conditions, qualify for? And that could just create a situation where all those rates may increase because that would set the benchmark?
I feel that if this all happens, what's in the works, so I'm not going to really comment on that right now. But if the threshold does become more available for the people that are $500 shy of getting some sort of help, or the expansion of how many people in the household per the income guideline changes, that will help be able to up the prices. They're more pay staff, more sustainability, et cetera. It just spreads like a flower field.
And you mentioned you had about 115 children?
Yes.
And what percentage of the families would you say do use assistance? And if you're not comfortable saying, you don't have to say.
Totally fine. Currently, right now, we're at 3%. It fluctuates, depending. We'll keep families all the way through. And we used to do spoilage as well, but the need for younger students was high that it cried when we. So we expanded that. So typically, once it rotates through, and we don't know whether you're cash, card, whatnot, up by about.
Okay.
Pauline, I know you're here from the county, and thank you so much for coming. Comments from you before we wrap up?
Well, I think the things that you have pointed out in the end here with the insurance,
Yep.
infant spots and expanding for our infant training, helping, having it open. Already with finding spaces that are free for these. Those are the things that.
Thank you. Let's.
Question. With regard to, let's say you've got a family and they're having an infant for the first time and they can't get into any place, do they go out of town to get daycare? Do they? Okay.
I know,
I've
I
had
know one
friends
that went to
that had a
Mankato.
kid in New Ulm and a kid in Nicollet, and he worked in New Ulm and had to drive to
Yeah.
Nicollet to drop
Yeah.
one kid off.
Or Sleepy Eye, or, yeah. You go where you can go,
We had to
right?
split my children up too when they were little because there were no spots. My sister-in-law got pregnant probably 3-4 months before I did, so she took the spot that I was hoping to get. And so that, thankfully, we were able to get in. at Kids Excel Center. 'Cause
Well, again, I want to,
fun
as we wrap up,
Thanksgiving.
thank all of you. It was so, I love your passion in your voices when you told your stories. So it's obvious that you love your children and love this work and did love this work. So thank you so much for that. We're going to take this on. Keep an eye on what ADA meetings. We're on TV. You can hear us. And this is going to be a big topic for us the next 6 months. So, and I'm going to work hard that we don't just talk about it, that we do something about it. And I'd love to get DHS to sit right there in those chairs, or we'll go up and see in their chairs. So, okay. We'll work on that
Go
aspect
ahead.
too. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
said one thing, when they brought up about the subs, even though we're a center, and obviously, as Jen pointed out, we have, 23 staff, but we run into that problem too. We have 3 on vacation, all of a sudden this one's kid is sick, this one's sick, or breaks a leg, whatever the case is. And I brought it up before, but some sort of like sub-pool, if that makes sense. A resource for whether it's in-home or centers to say, hey, we need a sub from, 8 to 5 this day, or, something like that. Just,
We're writing that down too.
okay, just something so
Yep.
like everybody can utilize it.
So some form of clearing to, if somebody is running into an issue at a center or a home where they need care for a child, would it be a communication network perhaps that we could facilitate?
Years ago, we used to meet at Brown County, and everybody would get together and had. Yep, the association, which is no longer really a thing. But we ended up, I had a couple staff members that I would lend out to homes so they could go to their appointments and et cetera and things like that. But they still work for me. They would just go sub so someone could take their kids to wherever.
Is that something that legally is feasible today to do?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
That is.
You
Is
just
it-
need background checks.
Okay,
like-
and they already have
know.
that because they're,
Well, you would just need one through your business, if she was still running an in-home, she would have to have a background check on me on file for me to come in and sub for her. But there again, then you're not running into finding a sub and them not having training, et cetera, or having to train them.
Yeah, if it meant that I could take my child to their 1-year well child check to hold their hand while they got shots, I would gladly pay for a background check. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that simple.
And
So,
when
yeah.
we were young, the next door neighbor came over.
sure.
Sure.
They didn't need anything.
Her grandma. Yep.
Okay,
Wrap her up.
I think we're done. Thank you so much
Thank you very
again,
much. Thank you
and
so much for coming.
hopefully it's cooled off a couple degrees while we're here outside. No? Okay. We are adjourned.